Hey there, and welcome to your video on topics 3.1 through 3.3. This is Generalist and Specialist species, K-selected and R-selected species, and then survivorship curves. So we'll go ahead and get started. This should hopefully be a shortish one, as a lot of this material you know already. So, on this page here, you can see the specifics on generalist versus specialist. It's pretty easy. This is really related to an organism's niche, its job. Generalist species, broad niche. They do well in a wide range of environments. Whenever you're given something like this, always memorize an organism, usually a plant and an animal if you can, but at least an animal that fits this. So you can see here raccoons are a great one. And then specialist, very narrow niche. A classic example is something like a giant panda as an example. And you can see that there's a great graph here that shows the niche breadth right there. Let's see, we've already got examples. Under which conditions are generalists able to thrive? Because remember again, one is not better than the other. One is just better suited to a particular environment. So here you go. When things are stable, specialists do great. Because they have fewer competitors because their niche is so small. When conditions are changing, generalists do better because they can basically handle however the environment ends up at any given moment. Okay, so that is the sum total of topic 3.1. Topics 3.2 is pages 193 through 194 in your book. All right, this is R versus K. So let's take a look. This has to do with reproduction. Think about R like a rifle. These species, short lifespans, produce many, usually small offspring, give them little or no parental care. As a result, many of them die off. These are prey species, oftentimes. Cockroaches are a good example. To overcome such losses, R-selected species produce large number of offspring so that a few will likely survive. Cane toad also is a great example of that. Hold on a second, let me make this bigger. So, let's see, under what type of conditions do they thrive? They're opportunists. Again, they do better in situations where there's been a disturbance. These are oftentimes invasive species if they're moved to a new place. And again, once established, their populations may crash because they just flat out run out of resources. Yeah, so they kind of go through a cycle of lots of organisms, not so much, lots of organisms, not so much, and it's largely based on environmental pressures. So the other extreme are K-selected species, and again, memorize examples. Fish, frogs, most insects, algae, bacteria. K-selected species, K, think care. They reproduce later in life, have fewer offspring, longer lives. They develop, spend a lot of time inside their mothers, and are born relatively large. They mature slowly and are cared for and protected by one or both parents. This is oftentimes where you see that herd grouping that helps to protect. All right, so let's see what else we have. What can happen to organisms with low productive rates? Right here, organisms that are K-selected are more likely to be on the endangered species than animals that are R-selected, because if they go through some sort of catastrophic decrease, their natural reproductive patterns do not help them rebound very well. It also, because you have less opportunities for mutations, it also means that you can have bottlenecking go on as well. So keep in mind the idea of a minimal viable population. We will loop back to conservation and efforts to help a population rebound towards the end of the school year. In this concept here, it depends on the species. There isn't a set number. It's going to depend on lots of variables, including Is it a generalist or a specialist? Is it a K or R selected species? What's its habitat like? What are changes that are going on in the environment? Blah, blah, blah. So, but there is kind of a general number that you can set for every population depending on those factors, where if the population dips below that, you're going to have to take some sort of catastrophic steps to ensure its survival. Notice it says survive in the wild. So this is where we did this with the California condor. Literally pull in all the animals, carefully breed them to make sure that you don't have any sort of reinforcing of negative alleles, and then release those organisms back into the wild once the numbers have built up again. So it's just one of those, yep, it's time kind of situations. So do also make sure that you take a look at this. Given a description, you should be able to determine if something is K versus R. So definitely take a look at this. The last thing that is a part of this unit is this boy, survivorship curves. So as with any graph, make sure that you orient yourself to what's going on. X-axis is age, so you go from an age of 0 to an age of, death. And then here, this Y-axis. Now, this doesn't mean everybody ends up dying at the same age. This is just like a relative age. This Y-axis is percentage of survivors. This is important because it means that you can compare a single flock of 1 million birds to a small critical population of 200 animals, because this is a comparison within itself. You need to know the names of these lines, type 1, type 2, and type 3. You need to understand what's going on here. This is exactly what it says: late loss, constant loss, and early loss. Late loss means that most of the organisms make it to later in life before they all start dying. Constant loss means that you can be picked off by death basically at any given time. And then here, early loss, most of you die when you're young. Again, remember, when we set up constructs as humans, things do not fall neatly into these three categories. Memorize one or two that fit. Have confidence that whatever you see in the national exam will also fit well into those boxes, and pretty much ignore anything else. The exam is not a time to get cute and to make your own personal case for, well, this is more K than R or whatever. Pick the one that's going to get you the points and move on. If these kind of nuances are things that fascinate you, I really encourage you to pursue environmental science as a degree in college. Right now is the time to go ahead and flex, given your basic knowledge of the environment. And when we do that, you want to pick what are called classic examples. So early loss would be annual things. These are dandelions. Constant loss, I normally say birds, but I can see squirrels being there too. And then late loss would be everything from elephants to humans. And again, make that connection that type 1 survivorship curve is K selected species. Type 3 survivorship curve are selected species. The paragraph that has to do with that is basically right here. I do want to encourage you to read all of this stuff because this is that there's really not a lot there. So again, these are general curves, approximate, but given how complex and numerous, how complex relationships are between organisms and how numerous the number of organisms are, to be able to at least organize them somewhat is helpful in our understanding of them, and ultimately being able to go ahead and provide true stewardship to our environment. So that pretty much ends the end of our video.